Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour. My name is Jason Rockman, and this is a place where we talk about all things pop culture. We talk to interesting people about what they might have on the go, and it's just a place where we like to have a lot of fun. And this week's episode is a tremendous amount of fun for myself, and I'm sure for my co-host, Ryan Stick, who we are going to bring in right now because I don't want to take the fun all for myself. Ryan, listen, man, we're talking about movies.
We are. I love it when we do this.
Listen, movies are, you're a big movie fan. I'm a big movie fan. And this week we're talking about three rad movies that are out right now that you can see because, two of them are in theaters and one of them is on demand. And I think that's a nice mix of the way the world is right now when it comes to movie watching, because not everybody is going to the theaters. And a lot of the times, unless you're a big blockbuster, you're going right to a streaming service. And it doesn't mean the quality's diminished at all in films.
No.
It just means that that's the format now. Everything is going streaming if it's not a huge, big blockbuster movie that needs to be seen on the big screen. And that's fine with me because some incredible movies are going straight to streaming.
That's true. And, streaming used to be looked down upon in a way, but then for a good 2 years, it was kind of the industry standard.
Yeah.
And now, the same way we used to look down at Netflix, like, oh, a Netflix movie. And now nowadays, I'm like, ooh, a Netflix movie.
I know. But before we go too far, let's give a shout out to our new clothing sponsor. We are Outfitted, Ryan. How does that feel to be outfitted? I never thought I'd be outfitted in my life. You?
I feel special in ways I never realized I could. But what's funny, though, is that all three movies we're seeing today, you've seen, and I haven't.
Right.
But I have seen Airborne.
Right. Oh, God.
The 90s rock and rollerblade movie. And when I saw this on studiohouse.com, this isn't because we're sponsored. I'm saying all this. This is like, oh, when I saw it on studiohouse.com, I honestly, you're like, oh, Studio House is cool. And I looked at the website and I saw an Airborne shirt.
Yeah.
And lost my fucking mind because I never realized that an Airborne shirt would exist, nevertheless, one this cool.
Yeah.
So good on Studio House for picking those oddities and celebrating them. Because you could just make another shirt that everyone else makes.
Right.
But considering they made a 13 Ghost shirt and an Airborne shirt, I lost my fucking mind, honestly.
Yeah. So if people don't know, Studio House, the website, studiohouse.com, if you've ever followed me, this is a fly shirt. I wear all of their stuff. Pretty much exclusively. Like I love Studio House. They're one of those companies that just do a phenomenal job with their shirts. It's run by two great people, and Cody, who's the chief designer there, does an amazing job, as Ryan was showing, putting together, paying tribute to movies that might not get the love that they deserve, and also some movies that are beloved. So I love the fact that they do a great job with their graphic design. They do a phenomenal job on printing on soft shirts, on comfortable shirts that, as you know, they're long sleeves. I live in them in the winter. I'm surprised I don't have one on now because it's so freaking cold here. But they've got great stuff. They've got great stuff, and we're very happy to have a partnership with them because it was kind of in the works for me for a long time. Anyways, I've been wearing their stuff for a few years now, and I'm just glad that they're officially on board, taking care of both of our torsos, because that's all you can see. I don't want to tell you what's underneath below the torso because there's nothing. I mean, I am literally, my butt cheeks are sticking to this vinyl chair right now.
Please make pants, Studio House. We would appreciate it.
So yeah, I just want to give them not just give them a shout out. We want to welcome them aboard to the Rockman Power Hour officially. And thank you, Cody and Aaron. Great company out of Philadelphia. And if you ever want to check them out, studiohousedesigns.com. So speaking of Studio House Design, speaking of movies, that's what our subject is today, is movies. And we've got three movies that we are going to be talking about that are available for you to watch right now. We're going to start off with a movie that has been anticipated for a long, long time. This is a movie that I got to see about 2 weeks ago, and I laughed my butt off. And actually, there were some moments where I was really scared as well. And you're asking, how can you laugh and be scared at the same time? Well, pair the Foo Fighters with the horror genre, and you've got Studio 666. And I was fortunate enough to catch up with the director of Studio 666, BJ McDonnell. Check out our conversation right here. Really nice that you're here with me today, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks
for
for agreeing to chat. I got to see the movie.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I got to watch it on Friday, and it was just so much fun. It was just so much fun. I mean, I think I want to get into this with you a bit because I have a couple of questions, but it seems to me that when you went into this project, you wanted to scare people, but you wanted to also have a tongue firmly planted in cheek. Am I right?
100%. Yes, we did. That was and the fact that people have received it that way, especially with you saying that, it's a mission accomplished.
Okay. It's because it did. I mean, there are literally some parts that were really freaky. Like I was watching this alone in a studio, and I much prefer to watch things in theater. But you know, when in these kind of cases, you kind of have to see them before so we can chat.
Right. Yeah.
But I could imagine seeing this in a theater with with being surrounded with good sound and stuff, and an audience. It must be a hoot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I haven't seen it in the theater with anyone.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
So I'm about to. That's the scary thing. I'm about to be in the theater to see it with everybody. So I'm excited. I mean, I've seen it so many times because of editing and things like that. But to see it with an actual audience is always so much fun. That's kind of, you really want to see it with an audience, although we know that some people aren't that comfortable with going to theaters right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, when you're looking at a project like this, is it, did you kind of have to put your name in the hat, or was it something that Dave came to you about, or like, how did it come about?
Came about with, basically Dave was recording Medicine at Midnight, and they were at the house that we shot at in Encino. Yep. And Jim Rhoda and John Ramsey are producers that do all his music videos, Sound City, those shows for Dave, anything audiovisual.
Right.
Dave threw the idea that he wanted to make a horror film. That he was, like they were talking about doing this horror film. And so Jim and John said, you got to meet BJ because he's a buddy of ours, because we were kind of working on projects together and trying to get some things going. Dave saw the Slayer videos that I had directed and wrote.
Yeah.
They sent me his pitch. I looked at it. I kind of read over it. And then I went on my computer, made a lookbook of things I thought would be awesome to add to the movie, just like to give a little bit more story and more depth. And then we set up a meeting with Dave. We met at the house. We talked about movies we loved, the kind of vibe we wanted to go with, what we wanted to accomplish with the movie. And then, we all got along so well that Dave said, let's rock and roll. And we did.
It's, to me, this reminds me of a time when bands would be big enough to do things like this. Like there were, when, Kiss made a movie, there were certain bands that made movies, but not everybody's been able to make a movie. But it feels to me like the Foo Fighters have done so much in their career and just continue to keep on doing things and expanding that, a horror movie like this makes complete sense. But it seems like someone hasn't done something like this in a long, long time. This is like a throwback to me.
Well, that's exactly what me and Dave talked about, and Jim and everybody and the guys, is that, because it was them and they wanted to do this movie, that was another whole reasoning with the vibe we wanted to go. We wanted to make another band film. We wanted to make another movie that kind of was a throwback to the movies that used to come out in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And that was the whole deal, because, no one's really making those movies anymore. It's all, it's just the same old. And now we were just like, it's time to make a movie with the band, starring the band. And to me and Dave, we were like, I don't think anyone's really done a horror film, that's also funny and fun. Yeah. So that was the whole thing. We were stoked about what we did. And that was a complete thing we went into wanting to do exactly what you just said.
Yeah. And being a big fan of genre films, and, I collect physical media. I buy Arrow Video. I get excited when Arrow has something new. When Scream Factory does special features for a movie that probably tanked in the theaters. But to me, it's important. It's important that this kind of a genre stays alive and stays interesting, and we're not just looking back on things that were done in the past and going, "Man, those are the good old days of this kind of cinema." So,
I know.
But it is very funny in some points. I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a few cameos in the movie that are great. I imagine Carrie King was your doing.
Mm-hmm. That was a choice. Well, because Slayer had broken up, right? And we and Dave were talking. It's like, it would be kind of funny to bring in Carrie to play basically a roadie. Yeah, I'll do it. I'm in. Carrie was super about it.
Well, just the idea of Carrie humping gear, it was really, really funny. But there's a couple of others, like, Lionel Richie shows up in the movie. at one point. And it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. And your experience with making movies, like, I looked through some of the stuff you've done, and I've had a chance to interview James Wan and stuff. And I saw you did some cinematography work with James. What most recently Malignant, what was that like to work with James, and how much of that experience, because you've worked, I mean, when you look at your credits, you've done camera work on a ton of stuff, and some massive,
I get around.
yeah, some massive stuff. So I imagine all those travels and doing all that work, and you're working with such high level talent, that's got to rub off on you. And it probably, I would imagine, helps you be able to be the captain of a ship like this and steer it, right?
Yeah, I find myself, like, as I've been doing this for 2 decades, and in the camera operating position, being the operator, I find myself really comfortable talking to actors, and that's really kind of like, being in this position and being where I'm at. It's made it easier. James Wan and people like that, and other directors I've worked with, I've taken so much knowledge from them. It's the best film school you could ever have, because you're right there working directly with the director and the director of photography. And you get to kind of watch, like, what works, what doesn't sometimes, what great things directors do to get what they need, and then you take away things that you've worked on where you go, ooh, that didn't work so good. And what, they were doing right there, I'm not going to do that. No names there.
Right.
But
yeah.
But I mean, I've taken, every job I've worked on, I feel like I've taken something from it, and I always learn something new. And James, for me, not only is he a great filmmaker, but he has an all-around amazing, wonderful vibe on set that makes it fun and makes you want to do it, and makes you want to be there working with him, because there's certain people too that can also make, it can go both ways. And what I've taken working with him and other directors that are very positive, and very, good at what they do, is I take that with me as make it as positive as you can, and always try to, keep a really great vibe on set. And I think, know what you're doing directing wise, but also it just creates a better vibe for the whole cast and crew around you.
Yeah. And I've had a chance to talk to James face to face. I interviewed him on the first Conjuring movie with Lorraine Warren. And, and that was a real trip.
That's
but
cool.
he really is such a mild mannered, unassuming guy. Like, you'd look at him, you'd think, that's James Wan. Like, he's just such a gentle guy, but the fact that he can scare the absolute shit out of you shows that he probably has a little terrifying side to him too.
I will say, honestly, some of the most lovely people I've met have made some of the scariest things you've ever seen.
Yes.
And it's a very strange, it's a strange mix there that I've seen. There's a bunch of that. And it's like one of my best friends is Marcus Dunstan, who did the Collector movies. And the guy is just like the sweetest dude in the world, but he's written some of the gnarliest stuff. Some of the gnarliest stuff. And it's the same thing with James and other people like that. Like, Gary Doberman, for instance, I just did Salem's Lot with him. I did Annabelle 3 with him.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely human being. You can't ask for better people to be around.
Yeah. And it's funny, Salem's Lot, I saw that you worked on that, and that's a huge, that's the one I'm really anticipating. Is it hard for you when you're doing this kind of stuff? And I imagine, just looking behind you, you look like you're a fan as well. I think you're so is it hard for you not to give away stuff when you've been on set and stuff that's happening? I'm sure you've got friends that are, you're sitting around having a couple of beers and like, come on, BJ, tell me, is it as scary as the one from the 70s? There's got to be that kind of those kind of questions that come your way.
It depends on who you know and who you can trust, honestly. But for the most part, in a professional sense, I usually, because the projects are so specific, and when until they come out, I'm like, you're gonna love this, but I can't tell you much about this. But I'm telling you what we did was cool. Or people ask me, was there a certain thing that they redid in the movie that from the 70s that they're doing? And I'm like, yeah, I can kind of give those. I can kind of hint that stuff, but for the most part, I try to keep things secret. And because for me, it's like if someone was working on a movie that I did, I would hope that they're kind of holding in, the surprises and things that are coming out, because it means a lot when the movie comes out. And if you're starting to tell people, and you never know that's why I say you have to trust who you talk to.
Of course, absolutely.
But I think that it's better just to try to keep everything so under wraps, because it just makes the theater experience better. And, when my friends that I really trust see things that I've done when it comes out, and they've been wanting, it's almost like the nice, build up. And then they finally get to see it and they're like, yeah. And it's not like, oh, well, yeah, you were telling me about that. Okay.
As soon as the movie opens, and the credits, I love the credits, by the way. The credits just, they really throw back to like a Carpenter style, it's just, and Carpenter, again, I don't want to give anything away, but it's just, there's some great moments in the movie that fans are going to freak out about.
Oh yeah.
But
Andy Canny did that. He's the editor from Invisible Man, and he does a lot of credits too. He's a really great dude. He just get our titles.
And that's the little things that people appreciate, big film fans and throwbacks and little, as they say in French, clin d'oeil, like little winks to things that have come and gone. But what I noticed and what I enjoyed throughout the film was the music. Roy Mayorga, I've known Roy for a long, long time. I used to live in LA. And when at one point my band was on Ozfest and he was about to drum for Ozzy. But I remember him from the Soulfly days. And he, not only is he just one of the sweetest guys, but I'm so happy to see that he's gone into scoring because he's really good at it. I mean, I don't know. And I didn't know he was even doing this, but is this one of the first things he scored? Has he been doing it for a while? And tell me a bit about that, because it's great.
This is his main thing that he's scored. Like, I believe he started scoring some stuff, and I didn't know him until I met him through Jim Rhoda, who was in Fireball Ministry, who's also the producer, one of the producers of the movie. Good buddy. Yeah. And he goes, "You got to meet Roy. He's awesome. As you think about who you want to have composing the film." And I'm like, and score for me is a huge deal.
Yeah, of course.
So I went and met Roy, and he showed me some things he was working on and some stuff. And we talked about like the progression of how the music was going to go and the things that I liked and what I wanted to kind of feel in the movie and how it was going to work out. And Roy delivered. I mean, honestly, now I feel like Roy's one of my best buddies. We talk all the time, and he's now like I feel like I've brought him into the world. I always want to keep him there because he's such a rad dude. He works really hard and he's such a talent. The way he does his scores in his studio at his house, it's amazing. Like, he does it all, and it's so cool.
And it's fun to see musicians that have made that transition from not necessarily being live musicians, but getting into scoring. I mean, come on.
Boingo Boingo, it's a Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
All right.
I've got a signed Beetlejuice record. And it's one of my prized possessions.
That's pretty awesome.
The other guy too is Richard Patrick from Filter. He scores some stuff that's just phenomenal. Yeah. So, score and like you said, music is such an important part that sets a tone, especially in a genre like this, where you're really, really relying on, musical cues to help sell what's happening on screen.
Well, yeah, and it drives a story. It creates the emotion of what's happening. It can set up a scare. It can also it's just, to me, music and scores is so vital to a movie. You have to really make it, it has to really, be a good composer to actually tell the story along with the dialogue and the story we're trying to do. It all has to come together perfectly. And Roy rocked it. And he's also a true horror fan, so that helps a lot because he gets the tone, If you got a non-horror fan to compose it, sometimes they're not going to get the scares or things like that. They're not going to get that vibe. And Roy, you couldn't ask for somebody better.
Yeah, I thought at one point that I was the biggest Shining fan, but I think Roy takes the cake.
He's a huge Shining fan.
Huge.
He spoke about Salem's a lot too, by the way. Like he knew I was doing that, so he's like, "Oh my God."
That's what I mean. When you have friends that are fans, it's going to come up. Lastly, because we got to wrap up. When it came to the band themselves, they see, like I've interviewed the Foo Fighters all together once before, and they really are the kind of band that all show up. It's not just the Dave show. Yeah. And it seems like this movie made very sure that everyone had an equal part to play. Were some of the guys less inclined to be on screen, or were they all like, let's just do this and have fun?
No, everybody was super pumped about it. I was, going into it, you never know like what you're going to get. Cause I didn't know all the guys at first, I just, I met Dave and then I started meeting the guys while we were in pre-pro. But honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better bunch of dudes that are not actors that came in to want to do this, that were so prepared on the day they came in and so ready to go. Every day it's like they didn't lose steam, and we didn't have anybody that didn't show up on time. Yeah. It was just like honestly, I couldn't ask for a better group of people. It ran perfectly. And I only hope that every other job from here on out is as easy as that. And do another one with these guys, because it was honestly a pleasure the whole time, between them and even our actors on set and our crew. It was just one of the best experiences that I've had in my filmmaking career.
That's amazing. Well, continued success. Can't wait to see what's next. And thanks for taking the time to chat today, man.
Dude,
really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you see, I really want to see this movie, not only because I like it when, rock and roll and horror combine,
Yeah.
but also because it reminds me of back in the day when, bands would just be in movies like
Yeah.
Rock and Roll High School or
Yeah.
Kiss Meets the Phantom. Like, it's nice to have another one to add. And bands aren't really in movies anymore unless they're like Disney kids.
Well,
So it's
yeah,
a dying art. Yeah.
it is a dying art. And that's what that's what I said to BJ when we were chatting. I mean, the idea of doing a rock and roll movie with a band, I mean, who else could do this and who could pull this off convincingly besides the Foo Fighters? And if you remember, Ryan, when the Foo Fighters first kicked off in the mid 90s, they were really, really funny in their music videos.
Yeah.
Remember the video for Everlong, and
Absolutely.
they always, and come on, exactly, the big hand,
Yeah.
and so they're always naturally funny on screen. So to see them all really dig into this and all contribute is great. And Foo Fighters is Dave Grohl's baby, but what I've always loved about the Foo Fighters is that when Dave does press, he includes the entire band. He wants to make sure that everybody's on board, and I love that about him. To him, it's not just the Dave Grohl show; it's the Foo Fighters, and it's a band. So and very much so in this movie, they're really, really funny, and there's some genuine scares. And BJ's worked on as a cameraman in some of the biggest horror movies. He just did Malignant, which came out last year. He's worked on some stuff from the Conjuring franchise. And if you look at his credits on IMDb, it's nuts. The guy has worked on everything. So you imagine along the way you've picked up some tips, right?
Absolutely. And when I was editing the interview, I was bugging out a bit about the Salem's Lot remake that I only heard about in rumor.
Yeah,
so it's nice to see that there's a confirmation of that.
I know.
Because this day and age, I'm wondering, I'm like, are they he didn't say anything, but I'm like, God, are they going to do a period piece? Are all these vampire kids going to have cell phones? Are they going to sparkle? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to say it now because the movie's been out for a few days. John Carpenter is in this movie.
Yeah.
And he also scores the theme song.
I didn't say like as in I've seen it. I said as in I saw it like on IMDb or somewhere. I think, and I'm just like, that's so cool. Isn't it him and his son that scored the theme song together or something?
Yeah, his son Cody. So
cool.
John Carpenter Live was still one of the best shows I've ever been to. When he, and if people don't know, John Carpenter, well-known director, he's like the king of genre movies. He's just done some absolute classics. Some of my favorites, like They Live and like The Thing, and of course Halloween. But what I like about John is he scores his own stuff. He scored his movies, and he did that out of necessity because he just didn't have any money left in the budget for music. So guys like John Carpenter and Alan Howarth, those guys were like the OGs of the 80s soundtracking stuff. So to have him attached to Studio 666 is really, really cool. But I really encourage people to check it out. It's in theaters for a limited run. And I would imagine that this will get to a home video release, and there will probably be some really interesting Blu-ray releases around this. I'm sure they're going to do some great packages, but Studio 666, I would definitely go check it out. If you're a Foo Fighter fan, it's a no-brainer. I'm sure a lot of people.
If you want to see Foo Fighters die, like even if you hate the Foo Fighters, this isn't a spoiler. This is in the trailer.
Yeah,
Taylor gets it. Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of carnage in this movie. Kerry King from Slayer is in this movie.
That's great.
He plays a roadie. He plays the Foo Fighters roadie who's there setting up their. And just to give you a little background really quickly before we jump to the next film.
Sure.
Studio 666. It's about the Foo Fighters have to write their 10th album. And they're just uninspired. So they move into this Hollywood mansion to record the record, and it's haunted. There you go. That's what it is. And it just, there's cameos from Lionel Richie in the movie. It's great. So definitely check out Studio 666. All right. So next up, Ryan, did you ever watch 24?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, it was the first show I ever binged. In fact, it was a necessity. I had to finish it. I remember the last 9 episodes were just a sleepless experience of just needing the clarity of the ending. And now that's kind of an industry standard to say, I'm going to binge the whole thing. Back then, it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Go outside. Why are you watching all these DVDs?
I think 24 was, I don't know if you could if you were to exactly pinpoint the beginning of binge watching, I think it's 20. I think it was 24. I'm pretty
I
sure,
think so.
because I remember getting seasons of 24, like you, Ryan, and putting them in disc after disc and waiting to watch it. I would not watch it week to week. I would wait till the seasons were out on DVD, and I would watch them on DVD.
Yeah, I think it's because it's the strongest serial storytelling, in a sense where every episode directly, like a soap opera,
Mhm.
will continue the second the other one finishes, and
Right.
that's usually a soap opera thing or an anime thing.
Yeah.
So because television, when people are watching, they're like, well, why would we tell one story? I mean, what if someone misses the week before? Will they be not interested in watching the week afterwards? So they took a real gamble on that, and it really paid off. In fact, it was telling the future in a way.
And I think they were the first people to go, maybe not the first, but you definitely could take full advantage of previously on 24, because you would get caught up in that, 30 seconds of 30-second clips. But on 24, there was a gentleman who played the president, and he was the officially, before Barack Obama, he was the first African-American president. And the actor is Dennis Haysbert. If you know Dennis's work, he played Pedro Serrano in the movie Major League, which was a great role for him. Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of the movie Heat. Michael Mann's masterpiece. Just, to me, one of the strongest ensemble casts ever. And he's in Heat as well. He plays the getaway car driver that Robert De Niro goes into the restaurant to enlist. Like De Niro in this scene, De Niro walks right into the back of the restaurant, into the kitchen, and pulls this guy out from behind the grill and says, I have a job for you. Do you want to do it? And that's Dennis Haysbert. And Heat is a special film, especially for movie nerds. I mean, the movie's just, Michael Mann was a genius in the 80s, and he carried that into the 90s. But he was the guy that put Cool on screen with Miami Vice. He's the guy responsible for Miami Vice. And he's also, the guy that married music and television together so nicely when he was using all those great songs in the 80s for Miami Vice,
paving the way for people like Quentin Tarantino and other people who would be nefarious for, like, really combining the two.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he was at the forefront of making, soundtracks really, really cool in the 80s. And he brought it to the small screen. So you figure, a lot of people go to the movies, but everybody watches TV, especially in the 80s. And Miami Vice was the biggest show in the 80s. And when I was a kid and I watched Miami Vice, I wanted to move to Florida, and I wanted to become a cop. I wanted to become like a vice cop, just like Crockett and Tubbs. But Michael Mann had a way to do stuff that was just so stylized and it was so cool. So Heat, great movie if you haven't seen Heat, and Dennis Haysbert, great actor. So we got a chance to talk to Dennis. And Ryan, Dennis is in a movie that is on Disney Plus right now, and if you're in the US, it's on Hulu, and it's called No Exit. What's fun about this film is you basically have, I think it's 6 people or 7 people that are stuck in a welcome center on a highway because it's snowed in, and they have to pull over, and this is the only place they can be. So all these strangers are in this room together, and everybody's got a story, and all this shit starts to happen.
I like those movies. I like those claustrophobic movies.
Very like, claustrophobic. Yeah.
The Thing without the thing, but still, we're stuck in here. What's going to happen?
Exactly like that kind of vibe. And you don't know who's who's what. Great twists and turns. And Dennis is in the movie. He's great because he's always great. He's also the voice of Allstate. The Allstate, like he was the Allstate commercial guy for 20 years. So a lot of people knew who he was.
It's funny. You're like Miami Vice. I'm like, yes. You're like Allstate, huh? I'm like, Ryan, get your priorities in order.
Well, no, it's just because the Allstate commercials. Like, listen, I was a kid that recently on Facebook there was a poll. How many of these jingles do you know?
Okay.
And can you match these lines with jingles? With what jingle it is. And I knew every single one of them, which means obviously someone plopped me in front of a television when I was young, and had me babysat by NBC, CBS, and ABC.
Look, if you spend his Allstate commercials talking to Kiefer Sutherland on a cell phone, I would know what the hell you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So anyways, he was the spokesperson for Allstate for a long time, and his voice was recognizable, and just a really, really Great guy. So check out our conversation with Dennis Haysbert from No Exit. How are you, Dennis?
I'm great, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. First of all, I should say, how are you, Mr. President? Because you'll always be my president.
Sounds good to me.
I got to watch the movie this morning, and the one thing I loved about this film, there are many things I loved about this film, but the fact that I could never figure out where just when I thought I knew where we were completely somewhere else. And it's, I mean, twists, turns, gasps, like it really, really was a great little film. How much fun was it to make?
Man, you have no idea how much fun this was. There's very few movies where you can come together with a cast and complete cast that you adore.
Yeah.
And I adored every one of these individuals, and we worked so well together that we even gave each other, 150% when we were off camera, as well as when we were on. Because we all wanted everyone to be great, and in order to do that, you had to feed them when they were on screen, and they would feed me when I was on screen. So it was one of those collaborations, man, that was just made in heaven. Just everybody just loved and adored each other. I mean, we even hung out together off the set, and the beautiful thing about this whole thing was that the sequence in the visitor center was all shot in sequence.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So it was like a play, that we had, a month to complete, and to do it in sequence like that, it was just, was a gift.
And, there's something to be said, you mentioned it. This really does play out like a theatrical production. And what I love about scripts like that and movies like that is you really are honed in on the performances. There's no bells and whistles. It's all about the people that are in the room.
Exactly.
And there's some great performances, but I love the fact that you're telling me that the cast was close, because it really seemed like you guys were gelled. Everybody had their roles, everyone assumed them, and everyone, executed them really, really well.
Yes, we did. Like I said, we would feed each other.
Yeah, no, you can see it, and it's genuine. I'm from Canada. It's really cold here. Winter is a major player in the movie. Did you film that in a real wintry place, or was most of that generated?
Actually, that was all generated. We were on a stage.
In California?
No. Well, actually in New Zealand.
Oh, okay. So I don't feel bad for you at all, because to endure that cold, although your character didn't have to sit out in the cold too much, which was pretty nice.
And I had that big, beautiful coat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, you look like you were in Star Wars on Hoth.
Right.
Dale is somebody that, I first discovered her on the Amazon show Them. And her character was just so evil. And there's something about her that she can drop in and she can just play somebody that you just can't gel with, because you're just so opposed to what they're doing. I imagine in real life, she's nothing like that.
Not at all. She is the sweetest lady I've met in a long time. She is just a gem. And like I said, all these people are beautiful people, man. And, that's just a tribute to their abilities, that they were able to show you what you saw.
Yeah.
And Dale and I's chemistry was just nothing short of magical. It was the first time I had met her in person, and I'd been a long-time fan. Going back to Breaking Bad. I mean, places where you wouldn't even recognize her.
Yeah, that's the thing. She's one of those actresses.
Recognizable, man.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Just amazing. And a beautiful heart.
When you got the script for this, were you able to read it right the way through? Or did they want you to have any kind of surprises when you were playing it? Because you did mention that it was shot in sequence. Did they leave anything to surprise, so you would have a genuine reaction to certain things?
Well, the surprise was that we shot it in sequence.
Okay.
I never expected it to be shot in sequence.
Okay.
When I got the script, I would just say, oh man, I'm just turning pages. And I said, man, this is magnificent.
Yeah.
I always say, no matter how large the part is, or how little small the part is, as long as I can sink my teeth into it and give it a good chew, oh, I'm in heaven.
I have to bring it up with you because I'm here and I have the opportunity. You did get to work with Michael Mann on Heat.
Yes.
What was that like? Because Heat's one of my all-time favorite films, and I can imagine. I mean, that cast, to me, that's one of the strongest casts ever assembled.
You're right. I can best answer that question this way. When I'm watching it, whether it's on a streaming service or on regular TV, whether it's the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes, whenever I come onto that movie and I start to watch that movie, I have to watch it to the end.
Right. You stop what you're doing.
Just to stop whatever I'm doing, I have to watch it to the end. And I think that's a tribute to not only the cast and crew, but to Michael Mann himself.
Absolutely.
What a hell of a director.
And lastly, have you ever been stranded anywhere and you've had to sit out somewhere? I mean, like I used to play in a band. We got snowed in once somewhere in really, really northern part of Canada. And we were stuck there for 24 hours. And, it was real. Have you ever been stuck anywhere due to weather?
Not due to weather, no. Okay. I mean, when I went to New Zealand to shoot this, I had never been in quarantine for 14 days.
Right, which is similar.
Which is very similar. And I really odd that I have no problem with it. And I was just in a little, single room, and thank God I had a king size bed. But I spent 14 days and then actually had an hour a day that that everybody was just walking around in a circle. It's like we were in prison.
Yeah.
And it almost made me think that, oh, you know what? Other than, the possibility of getting shivved or something like that, I could probably do time.
Yeah, just just
that little caveat, I mean, as long as I have to worry about being, shivved, I could probably do time.
And what do you got coming up next?
What's coming up next is Flamin' Hot, which should be released actually a couple of months after this is released. And then following that is Traffic Control, which is a derivative of the sniper movies, only it's more about the spy work. So it's the first time in my career I've had back-to-back movies.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to these all coming out because they're all so vastly different.
Well, Dennis, thanks for taking the time. Continued success. I really had a blast watching this movie, and
thank you.
And I look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Let's do it.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too.
Yeah, I gotta check this out. I'm a lover of horror movies. I'm a lover of intense movies. I'm a lover of dramas. I love it when humans can suck. Like that's really my favorite thing because every time I watch a movie and I'm waiting for the monster, usually the monster is kind of like, oh, that's pretty cool, I guess. They have a budget. But man, when you can nail humans really being pieces of garbage, that you don't need a budget for that.
No. And that's what's great about No Exit is that everybody in the film, every character in the film is flawed and is unhappy with where they're at in life. It's like none of them are in the place they want to be. Everybody is striving to be somewhere else, and everybody's put in this position, in this situation where they have no choice but to be with each other for a bit. And as it all unfolds, it's great. It's just a great, I like to call it, it's just like a great, when you say it's a great little movie, it really is a great little movie because it gives you exactly what you need in an hour and a half. And it was entertaining and I would watch it again. And it's fun to watch these kind of movies when you know the end, to rewatch and see if you might have missed some stuff. But it really shows like the worst side of humanity. I mean, all these people are out for themselves and it's kind of gross, but it's great at the same time.
Hey, you know what? When humanity sucks, sometimes you need a guy to put on a costume and beat the crap out of them in the cover of night.
Yes. And that is exactly what is happening in this next movie that we're going to be talking about. And that is The Batman. Now, Ryan, I got to be honest with you. It was one thing with Studio 666.
Yeah.
It was one thing with No Exit.
Okay.
But when I saw Batman without you, I felt like I was cheating on you.
You were.
I felt bad, and I cannot wait to go see the Batman with you, because this movie, Ryan, and I have not been able to talk about it at all, because I saw this movie, I think about 3 weeks ago. I saw this early, Ryan, and I've had to shut up about this movie forever. And it has been so hard because I have all of my geek friends, and like you, I've got a lot of them, have been asking me, did you see Batman? I saw you post about something. Did you see Batman? And I just have to answer with an emoji like, huh, or whatever the emoji is, or the sunglasses emoji, whatever it was. I couldn't just say, yes, I saw Batman and it fucking rocked. But Ryan, I saw the Batman and it fucking rules.
Oh, that's good, because I have not a love-hate relationship with Batman, but my standards for your Batman movie, like, I remember vividly walking out of Batman and Robin as a kid and dying inside a little bit. So,
oh no, there's none of that.
Exactly. But to me, I'm just like, every time I see a Batman movie, I don't ever let my guard down. I always kind of go up wearing my own bat armor. I'm like, this could be awful.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see that DC, every time they've seemed to be doing these things where, like, let's not worry about what Aquaman and Wonder Woman's doing. Let's just make a good film. Joker, is it connected to the rest of the universe? No. It's just a really cool story.
Yeah.
And I like that. So Marvel's strength is, let's make everything into this one world. But DC's strength is, let's just make the best one shots ever, like we did in the 80s. Let's shock people.
Yes. And not play catch up to what Marvel's doing. I don't know about you, Ryan, but I loved Man of Steel. I absolutely loved Man of Steel. And
me too. I really liked that. I just thought it fell off a little bit after with that, but Man of Steel is very cool, a very cool metal take on Superman.
It was. Look, some people don't like it. I love Man of Steel, but the biggest problem I had with Man of Steel is that I wanted Man of Steel 2 and 3, and we got rushed along to Batman versus Superman and Justice League, and the rest is history. But I think now we're in a place where we're getting, everybody's figuring it out, and Warner are an incredible studio that know what they're doing. And it was evident when they did Joker, because Joker was a great on its own. And this is what we're getting with Batman.
Yeah, it seemed kind of like, they got back into that Dark Knight earnestness about, how you can examine these characters that seem larger than life, fantastical stories about clowns, and make it so human. And I think DC fans have always kind of been that way. They're not into the splash page. They're always kind of into the deeper roots of the writing, character development, all that. So it makes total sense to me that they would make a Batman movie that, to me, kind of seems like a 97 movie, except without Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. You got a dude in a suit. And I'm like, and I love that, because he's a Dark Knight detective. So everything, and you're just probably clamping your mouth shut like one of the people in Arkham. It's like, here's Rockman, spoiler man. Like, you don't want to do it. But I'm sure that it's been lonely knowing the greatness of this movie and not being able to share it with anybody.
There was one journalist from the press that was at the screening with me that morning. We were able to message each other a little bit on Facebook and say, man, that was good. That was good. And that was kind of fun. But yes, so now that I can talk about it, the new Batman movie, The Batman, is phenomenal. Okay. Any hesitation that you might have had giving up, the Batman cowl to Robert Pattinson, take that away, erase it from your mind, because he is great as Batman. And I went as far to say he's my favorite Batman. And I know that
is fighting words, and I'm glad you said it.
But you know what? Wait till you see it. Till you see it. And I think the reason why, Ryan, not only is the cast solid, I mean, you've got solid actors in this movie. You've got Jeffrey Wright, who is playing Commissioner Gordon. You have got Colin Farrell in the movie as well. Listen, the movie's just solid right through. Cast is solid, but the guy who really, really is responsible for making this movie as cool as it is Matt Reeves. And if you're not familiar with Matt's work, Matt is the guy that saved the Planet of the Apes. He literally is the guy that turned something that a lot of people considered a campy franchise into something incredibly emotional and relevant like the Planet of the Apes movies, Ryan, you know, you're talking about CGI apes. Okay.
Yeah.
CGI apes that you cried for. And this isn't like, you know, a DreamWorks children's movie that tugs at the heartstrings. You were crying for these apes. Without any further hesitation, here's my conversation with Matt Reeves, director of The Batman. Matt. Hey, best Batman to don the cowl yet.
Ooh, thank you. Wow, that's so cool. Well, I certainly think so when it comes to Rob. I think he is incredible. He's so great. So I'm excited for people to see it. I'm so glad you felt that way.
I really felt that way. And I sincerely mean that. You know, the thing with Batman is, as we all know, as time progresses, you know, you can look back on some of the stuff with fondness, but some of the things don't age as well. As soon as I was watching, I'm like, this is gonna be bulletproof in 10 years.
Oh, I love that. Okay, good. That's awesome.
There's a grittiness to this movie. There's a dirtiness. There's a dirty film over the whole thing.
Yes.
What was it like to try to achieve that, and how much fun did you have achieving that?
Well, every scene, like I have to say that it's like monsoonal in Gotham, right? Like every scene that, I was putting the actors just through so much rain. We were shooting at night in the winter in London. It was cold. I mean, there were times they were shivering, and we were just between the grime and the water. And then with Greg Fraser, he would put these little silicone sort of smears on these little filters that we put in front of our anamorphic lenses so that the water would be dripping onto the lens, so that you always felt like the point was to make it feel like you were in it. You were immersed in it. And so we did everything we could to make sure, like, I love the kind of like aesthetic of like a Hitchcock movie, right? Where you are right in the center. You're in the shoes of the character as they go through the experience. So you feel that effect. And we took that to the extreme. We have the sound, we mixed it in Atmos sound in a way that's very immersive. And then visually, we did everything we could, especially with James Chinlin's amazing production design, to make it feel like you were just in that dripping, grimy, wet, crazy city.
Yeah, I just wanted to get everybody into a hot shower right away. The first time Robert comes on screen in the Batman suit, that great scene in the subway. I mean, there's a weight to his walk. There's just a presence that comes in. How did you feel when you first saw him in the suit?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, that's a funny, because the first time I ever saw him in a suit, he had to put on one of the old, when you do a screen test, the studio needs to see how someone looks in the bat suit, right? And of course, there was no question that Rob was going to look great in a bat suit. He has a real Batman. He looks like Batman. But we put him in one of the nippled suits. And, it's a crazy moment because you're sitting there, you're looking at the history of Batman suits. We had the one from Kilmer and from Clooney and from Keaton and from Affleck. We had all of them there, and it was like, okay, which one fits? And we put them on, and he looked amazing, but it wasn't ours. So that was kind of weird and surreal. But then we worked really hard on making this suit perfect for Rob. And when he showed up and we did our really what was our first camera test, it was really exciting. It was like, oh my God, here we go, here he is, and this is a new iteration, and it's all Rob, and it was very exciting. And shooting that scene was really fun. That I really wanted the movie to be kind of like a horror movie in that sense. When he emerges, Batman's meaning to intimidate the criminal element. So that scene at the subway platform is supposed to be like a beast emerging from the shadows, and the way Rob walks out is pretty cool.
Well, achieved. Thanks a lot. Continued success, and I can't wait for people to see this.
Thank you so much, man. I'm so glad you liked it.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I gotta see this movie, dude. It's
you do.
Not even funny.
Is it hurting your brain? Is it hurting your brain right now because you haven't seen it?
No, it's interesting because Robert Pattinson's always been a great actor, but Twilight really stigmatized him as being like this teen dream. But I saw this movie at Fantasia Film Festival a few years ago called Good Time.
Yes.
And was blown away by the dude's performance.
Yeah.
And the Safdie brothers, of course, that would make other amazing movies like
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. So anyway, the Safdie brothers were there in person, and so was Robert Pattinson. And Mel and I were like in the front row because Mel wants to be near Robert. Yeah. And I was staring at the guy, and I'm just like, he looks so good on camera, but in person, he's a little sleepy, like
Right.
me.
Right.
I love this guy. So after all these years of my DiCaprio syndrome with him, I'm like, oh, the girls like him. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
That's how I humanize pretty boys with a lot of talent. I'm sure a lot of people did the same thing with Brad Pitt back in the day. They're like, you need that one role, like California or something.
That's it. It just takes you in another way. I mean, and
Yeah.
like you couldn't have put it better with the DiCaprio syndrome. I mean, I remember people shitting all over Leonardo DiCaprio, and then now look at him. He's like the biggest actor in the world. You know, he's one of the biggest names in the world, and he's a fine actor. And so is Robert. The Lighthouse, as you know, Ryan, I love The Lighthouse, and he was so good in The Lighthouse. So good in The Lighthouse. So to see him as Batman and to see him walk out of the shadows like he does,
Nice.
You're going to see, man, you're going to freak out. You're going to lose your shit when you see this movie.
I'm looking forward to seeing a Batman movie where you're not setting up a sequel necessarily the entire time. You're showing a guy figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been Batman forever, and he's still like a legend amongst the a legend in an urban legend amongst the criminal folk, which are a cowardly and suspicious lot.
Yeah.
According to Batman lore. Yeah. And it's I'm looking forward to Batman being kind of a shadowy beast again, kind of like in the beginning of Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, we shouldn't have pulled the gun on that kid. It's like, maybe the bat will get us. It's like the bat, you know.
Well, he's really scary. And I think that's what Batman should be. He should be scary. And, Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy was really, really good. And it does take from that in terms of the tone, but it goes another level lower in terms of the darkness and the grit. The grit is in this movie. The same way you felt the grit in Joker, you feel that the dirtiness of Gotham City in Joker. You know, it has this grit to it, and they have the same you have the same feeling when you're watching the Batman. It's just gritty and it's dark. And Zoe Kravitz too. Zoe's really good as Catwoman. I'm, to me, the thing that outlived all of those Batman movies and still stands up as Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. I mean, she was just great. And Zoe's great. Zoe's great as Catwoman. She has a great vibe in her suit, and she has a great vibe as Catwoman. And you're going to see there's some tech in here too. The way Batman does surveillance and the way he records stuff is done a certain way that is so cool. Yeah. I've never seen that before. It's just very original. It's very, very original. And Andy Serkis as Alfred, he's great too. So yeah, the Batman, high on the list, Ryan. You have to check that out. So 3 movies that you should definitely keep on your radar. So Studio 666 is in theaters now. No Exit is available for streaming on Hulu and on Disney Plus in Canada. And The Batman is in theaters on March 4th. So make sure you check it out. So we got a lot of thanks today, Ryan. We got to thank a lot of people today. I definitely want to thank all the folks over at Paramount and at Promo Avenue for hooking us up with the No Exit folks. We got to thank Melanie and everybody for Studio 666 to have a chance to chat with BJ McDonnell, and of course Warner Brothers Canada for our conversation with Matt Reeves. And thanks to our new outfitter to make our torsos look beautiful, Studio House Designs. and to all of you for hanging out. My thanks to my beautiful co-host Ryan Stick, who's never looked better. Our executive producer, Julia Kedzierski, and to all of you, thank you so much for joining us. And next week, Ryan, on the show, we have got an absolute musical legend, Ryan. Legend, a guy that wrote a song that everybody on the planet knows.
Does he have a hat, and is he a man? Is he without one?
We'll see you next week on the Rockman Power Hour.